Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. This is the most special, the most opportunistic, the greatest time of year if you are a sports fan. It is all you can eat basketball this time of year in March. I don't think I can technically say the words that we all associate with March basketball. However, I can bring somebody on who knows everything. He is the guru, the wizard of the brackets. He's a guy that if you talk, and he's going to tell the story about how he hasn't missed this particular time of year since he was fourth grade and called off sick. Statute of limitations. You can't do anything to him now. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we bring in our bracket buster himself, one of my favorite people in the world, and the only person I absolutely believe when he tells me something about basketball in this time of year, in this capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Schiraldi. What's up, Brody?
Nothing much, bro. That's a really big introduction and a lot to live up to. And I can only tell you that by 6 o'clock tonight, I hope I'm not texting you to let you know that my bracket is completely blown up. But likely, some directional school is going to do that today.
I mean, everybody does their due diligence. Their 45 minutes, as I say, of due diligence when they put together the bracket. You sit there, you don't watch college basketball. Well, I say you do. We don't. And all of a sudden, this late March, mid March happens, and all of a sudden we want to catch up in 45 minutes and have, for the first time in history, because it's worth $1 billion, the perfect bracket. So we're going to ask you to kind of lead us through what we're going to be watching, what we should be anticipating in the men's side of things, and maybe a little bit in the women's from a standpoint of, hey, like, other than Caitlin Clark, what should we be doing? But for the first time, we're going to play it, men first instead of ladies first on this side. So when we're looking at our bracket, we're breaking it down. 68 teams, right? The play-in games are already happening, but the real deal starts literally today. So you're looking at your bracket. What are the things that you're looking at and the teams that you're looking to be very successful this year? And who are some of the teams after that maybe we should be looking at for Bracket Buster?
Yeah, so one shining moment, man. It's that time of year that not only mere mortals like ourselves, we get to be a part of it. And when they say college basketball season doesn't matter because of the length, it does for me. I look at who'd you play early on out of conference in those difficult games. And then I really start to get dialed in and in the February times frame where those are the dog days of college basketball season leading up to the conference tournaments. And I'm really looking for teams that were peaking. So I'll look at the last 5 to 7 games in the preview. Look, at the end of the day, these applications that we're now utilizing, you're no longer going to newspapers and comparing notes and things like that. You can literally click a button and the 10 hours worth of research takes you, 5 seconds. So I'm looking at how a team performed in the last 5 games in their conference tournament, who is peaking. You can get access to that information. The other thing that I think that doesn't matter and hasn't mattered for a number of years now is rankings. I throw those completely out the door. You've got 26-year-old seniors that they're taking their 8th year as a COVID year, and they're older than guys that are in the NBA that are playing on college basketball teams. So I don't overvalue or overestimate on the rankings. But a couple things that I've always leaned on come March Madness. Number 1, can you defend? Number 2, rebounding. And that's a huge key ingredient to this time of year. Number 3, what's your guard play like? Do you have guys that can take care of the rock in crucial times of the game, get you tough buckets, get the ball to the right people at the right time, get you in the right positions? So guard play for me is huge. And then I start to look at also offensive points per game and the amount of points you've given up defensively as well. So in those matchups that you're seeing, you're trying to figure it out. What's the conference look like? But how many points a game is your team scoring? If it's way off, that leads into it. And then kind of an oddity. This is a giveaway, DJ, but time zone. I think it used to matter more than it does now. But if you have a school that's traveling from the East Coast playing on the West Coast at an earlier time frame or vice versa, that plays into the factor. And then when all else fails, the usual standbys, favorite mascot, color of the uniform, favorite player, favorite NCAA memory, and you fall in love with that, and that's how you kind of start going through your picks.
I'm really interested from our standpoint. So I've been looking at the 11s and the 12s because that's what people tell you to look at because that's where 34%, 38% of the upsets happen, especially in the second round. But reading today, which I don't do very much, as you know me, what they're telling you is leave the 12s alone. The 11s are where it's at this year. But you're saying let the rankings go. Don't worry about the rankings because especially with the age of the player, it doesn't travel well. But defense always travels this time of year, correct? So that's why you're putting so much leverage on the defense.
That's why I've always, yes, I absolutely. So the things that you control in a basketball game, your effort, and that's obviously any sport, but rebounding something that you can control, and defense is something that you can control. And every basketball team in America, every coach knows that. Your shooting percentage is going to be what it's going to be. You're going to try and get your looks. So many people are relying on the three now, and then spreading the floor, dribble, drive, kicks, and then take it to the 10. But at the end of the day, it's like people that can lock down. And that's one of the things that, like, I look at like a Tom Izzo team, and they've always done very well in the tournament. If you look at his postseason NCAA tournament record, he's right behind Coach K. Their teams defend and they rebound. And but here's the thing. Like if you took me up to the South bracket and you're asking, like, I like NC State over Texas Tech, not because it's an 11 versus a 6, but I really love the way that NC State finished out the season. There's a few other 11 and 6s. I'll go over to the East bracket, and we could talk a little about Duquesne and BYU.
Love it.
Keith Dambrot is been around forever in coaching college basketball. Do not sleep on him. He actually, a lot of people don't know this, but they will, because I think they just, either the movie's coming out or they made a movie about it. He was LeBron's high school basketball coach when they won their first state championship and then turned things over to Drew Joyce. Drew Joyce Jr., or the third, is actually on his coaching staff. And he coached LeBron like one-on-one in personal workouts all the way through the time that, he was up through high school, through the Cavs. A lot riding on it. Dad went to Duquesne, liked the story, liked the backstory. So I do think that there's a really good opportunity for Duquesne to be in the mix against BYU, who's scoring 81 points a game. And for those of you that, whether this is a betting show or not, it's all legal now, brother. And so my FanDuel account's open, and BYU's given Duquesne 9.5. So whether or not, I got Duquesne in my poll, and I really like them at the 12:40 game today to at least cover the 9.5 that they're getting.
No, I love that. I mean, Duquesne hasn't been in the big dance since 1977. And this is it. Coach retired. He said, that's it for me. We're going to open up the bench for somebody else. But we know, and that's kind of to my darlings, Duquesne, because they're local, and then Long Beach State. I'll tell you what, that whole narrative with firing their coach, and then their coach says, you know what, I'll coach through the rest of the year. And then they win the tournament, and now they're in the NCAA tournament. Tell me about, from your standpoint, when you hear something like that and everybody's playing with house money, does that go into like you picking teams, especially in the first round?
Us against the world mentality, and I've been in that locker room, even only at the Division II level. My sophomore year of basketball at Walsh University, it's so funny. Like I went back, conference champions. They're now giving these huge Super Bowl rings. Dude was like, so he's like, what did you guys get when you won the conference? And what was your record? They were like 20-10, like 2 years ago. I was like, I don't know, like 29-5, like second best record in school history. And we got like Timex watches. But, that run, we went to we finished up at the grade 8. We got beat. That locker room that whole time was like, us versus the world mentality, chip on your shoulder. And I think that that's what's coming into it with like a lot of these teams, and especially Long Beach. Like, that coach has something to prove. There's a little bit of extra, motivation. You're playing for something bigger than basically yourself. Uh, when you go take a look at like Auburn, that's another example in this tournament where Bruce Pearl over the past 6 months has had a tumultuous emotional ride with losing his father, and then if you've seen the videos where he gave a kid with childhood cancer an opportunity to be the manager of the basketball team. Like, he's always been like a super emotional guy. I think a team like that, again, like you're playing, you've got a mantle, you're playing for something bigger than what you are, and you've got something to prove. Wounded cat syndrome. Anytime that you got that, I think that that's something that you can take a look at and say, there's a reason why they're here, and there's a reason why I want to get behind them.
You talked about one shining moment. Naturally, that's what CBS uses throughout the playoffs, throughout the bracket, as and kind of cherishes it as, and everybody looks towards it towards the end in the championship setting. But there's so many shining moments along the way for some of these guys. You look at UConn trying to run it back this year. That's my team. I'm taking UConn this year. But what I'm more excited about anything is these dudes and these ladies on the other side, in the women's bracket that are able to capitalize on these moments that they will be everlasting forever, but also could help them with their draft stock as they move forward. One guy who is getting a lot of press because Pat McAfee's all over him, Keisei Tamanaga over at, I think I spelled his name right or pronounce his name right. Keisei Tamanaga. I got it. He's a guy from Nebraska who's like the Japanese Steph Curry. Guys like this, is this their opportunity? I mean, can you see this guy, Keisei, leading the Cornhuskers, which how he ended up in Nebraska, I guess, is a different story. But
Right.
being able to lead them through this bracket and essentially be at the top of the draft board in a few months?
Whatever it takes to open the door and get you there. And I think that the NCAA tournament's always proven something for guys that stand out and guys and gals that do stand out. It does become that opportunity on that big stage for them to get a chance to get into the gym. It doesn't guarantee draft pick, but it guarantees you that opportunity to get the invite to go show people what you can ultimately do. Look, we've seen people like Seth Curry, right? He played his way into that, or from that tournament into that draft pick. Carmelo Anthony, as a freshman, we knew that he was going to be amazing, but we didn't know he was going to be that sensational of a scorer. And then obviously elevating his status by going deep and then winning it and showing that he could carry a team. And there's examples like that up and down the board of where, you could go back to Oklahoma State and Big Country. Big Country
Oh
gets picked
yeah.
right in goes and plays in the NBA because of the simple fact that he had a great run. Danny Manning taking Kansas to the national championship with Larry Brown and winning it. Really at the end of the day, good player, turned out to be a great player that elevated draft stock. And then there's people that are not even on the board that all of a sudden you're like, wow, like they managed to get your team to that. When I've coached kids, like I coached a junior Olympics team way back. uh, and you're playing for college scholarships, or it's like I coached Team Ohio. What I told the kids is like, in the massive pool of the week, we're one of 16, 18, 25 teams. But if we can get to that final game, every coach here is going to have to see you play in that game. And that's really the same mentality that these people get to take. Here's the other thing, DJ, like, so very few of these people that we talk about when we say this one shining moment are going on to play in Europe, to play in the D League,
Right.
to play in the NBA. So this, for a lot of people, when that horn sounds, that reality really kicks in, and there's an ending that comes to an abrupt halt that has defined you probably since the time that you've been 10, 11, 12 years old, that you've been in the gyms playing for your local team, your travel team, your college team, trying to make it. And then all of a sudden the horn sounds and it's over with. And your identity has been that. And then the transition of translating all that discipline and competitive spirit into your business life or into your work life is really what we're watching right in front of our eyes. A lot of people don't even really can never understand that when, and a lot of people that have played recognize that and relate to that. So I think that's what makes March Madness so compelling.
We talk about it all the time. Less than 2% of those gentlemen and these ladies, probably less in the ladies category, are going to go on to play professional basketball. So, I mean, this is their moment. This is their one shining moment, as you've said. Very well put together, my friend. All right, the appetizer's over. All right, we've been nibbling. It's time to get down to brass tacks. It's time to look at those brackets and tell us who Dennis Schiraldi, the GOAT of the bracket challenge, the bracketologist here locally, who are you taking into the Final Four? Who should we be looking forward to following throughout the next couple weeks?
All right, so I just can't come with it with the Final Four. But I got to tell you, like obviously I like UConn. You know, the Hurleys are the royal family, if you will, of March Madness. Bobby Hurley, arguably the greatest point guard that's ever played in the Final Four, going to 3, MOP of the 92, upset UNLV. I do like Auburn out of that bracket as well, so keep an eye on them. Illinois is severely undervalued as a 3 seed. I think that the way that they came down in the Big Ten tournament, they looked very strong. Again, defense and rebound, and then you put some other factors into it too. They have some people that can get some tough buckets. Out of the South, I don't think there's any upsets there. I'm sorry, surprises. I think Houston and Duke will be vying to go to the Final Four. I think NC State pool, if you're looking for an upset, if you're valuing it off of like the numbers, NC State over Texas Tech. I love Reed Shepherd at Kentucky. I think he's the most dynamic player in college basketball right now. I watched half a dozen Kentucky games down the stretch. He does it all at both ends of the floor. He passes the basketball, anticipates, goes right, goes left. Like if you love basketball, that's a guy that you're going to want to watch. We already said that, I like Duquesne over BYU. Midwest, I think we got the Blue Bloods with Purdue and Kansas that are going to come down to it. And so at the end of the day, long-winded way of saying that I got UConn and UNC, kind of no surprises there with the chalk. UNC's got a ton of experience. If you thought Stacey Augmon played a long time at UNLV, North Carolina has dudes there that you think have been there for about 10 years, right? And then on the other side of it, I do like Houston. I just think that they've played solid basketball. What they do are sneaking in is Kansas. You never count Bill Self out of a March Madness, and he has a little bit of that chip on his shoulder, like, hey, we're Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk 4. All right, we're going to talk about that, right? So that's what I think.
I love it. It fires me up because I've got UConn. I have who else do I have? I have Houston. I have Tennessee down here, and I really think I think there's something to that. I know that it's a big stretch, right? I'm really putting myself out there with a 2, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of question marks. I'm not hearing much about Tennessee. I don't know why I like them so much. It's not their uniforms, just like Sandra Bullock. I hate the color, but at the end of the day, there's something about that orange crush that I like. And then on the other side, since I've been little, and I think you can attest to this, the Mike Bibby, Miles Simon, Arizona Wildcats. Like there's something about the Wildcats that anytime they're on a bracket, I have to second guess myself because of that run they made all the way back in the late 90s. So, I mean, are those 4 decent picks that you could potentially see in the Final Four?
And I'm showing my age, man, but when you've got like the Sean Elliott group that came through with Lute Olson and put their first Arizona win together, let's not sleep on the fact that is a huge basketball school. I'd agree with that. And then on the other side of that, I think that Tennessee obviously plays in a pretty good league, right? So you've got the SEC. They're coming off of a pretty good ending, some very notable wins. The only thing that it was early in the season, was back in November, that they lost to Kansas, but not by much. So I think that that you're spot on with those picks. Um, I don't know why I'm sticking with Dayton. Maybe it's because it's Ohio,
Oh, it is.
but
You're
I
such
think
a
that they're
sucker for the local.
completely and there's time to change, but they're completely overrated. Like they didn't even win their conference, and so I'm like, I don't know. Like I don't know why I'm still laying on them, but who knows?
Who's the was it Sister Jean or who was it a couple years ago? Uh, who's going to be the team that just absolutely goes on a Cinderella run? If you had to take a wild guess and throw that dart against the wall, who's it going to be?
Yeah. So you can't count out Bryce Drew at Grand Canyon. And
Oh
if you
boy.
are old enough to remember his buzzer beater in March
Oh
Madness,
yeah.
playing for his dad Larry Drew at Valparaiso, it's something that you can't weed out. St. Mary's is a really good team from a really good conference, but at the end of the day, that seems like a beatable game. And then you get into a game against, potentially Alabama or Charleston. You never know. But I think that feels like a team because of its leader and the guy that's been there before has the opportunity to maybe get a little bit of a sputter behind them and make some noise in this March Madness.
We've talked about Duquesne, obviously locally here, Pittsburgh. The other team we haven't talked about yet, Akron. Okay, so they kind of spun their way into this thing with a little bit of a faux pas, if you will, with Kent State. Do you see the Zips making any noise? Do they have any chance at making some noise in round one?
Well, I saw the ending to that. And sometimes when teams get a scare, a lot of times top ranked teams get a scare in the NCAA tournament early. It usually has this crazy motivating factor. The other thing that makes me a little bit biased, besides the Ohio factor, is that Bob Huggins' second head coaching job in college was at the University of Akron. The first head coaching job was at my alma mater at Walsh University in Canton, Ohio. So it's very difficult for me to not have that biased opinion against University of Akron. I do have the Zippers going down in the first round, but it has nothing to do with any of that except for the fact that I just don't see them getting by Creighton. I think that that's a tough play for them.
They got a bad draw. They got a bad draw. Let's be honest.
Great. Yeah, I mean Creighton's one. Yeah, it's 80. They're averaging 80 points a game on offense and giving up 70, and Akron's averaging about 74 and giving up 65. So that delta of 65 to 80, 15 points, that's a lot. Versus the top 25, Akron's not really played anybody. BPI rank 106. But the MAC's a really good conference. So look, I could go either way with this, but I have Creighton winning.
All right, so now it's time. Let's unveil the red carpet. Let's let the confetti fall because this pick, all the mattress Macs out there that are watching YSN, watching the Power Hour, are waiting for this particular spot. Dennis Schiraldi, when it's all said and done, when everybody's listening to One Shining Moment, and the stage is out there, and the lights are at their brightest, who will be the 2024 NCAA men's champion?
All right. So no drum roll needed. And this no drum roll needed, but this is
All
going to give
that
it
build
away.
up.
Right. Right. No drum roll needed. It's going to give it away a little bit. Back in my college coaching days, I went to a coach's clinic. I heard all the big names talk. Jim Calhoun says, I don't have a rule about this is going back to the Rip Hamilton days. So like when I start drop right. So yeah, you said it. I'm a March Madness nerd. So Calhoun gets in this coach's clinic and he basically says, "Look, here's the deal. I don't have a drinking policy and I don't have a curfew policy. We line up at practice. We get one long line, and you got to get a rebound off of every dude in that line to get out of the drill. He goes, and by the time we get done with it, guys are ready to throw up. So it's like we don't have to worry about telling them not to go out and drink. Now, whether that's true or not, maybe embellished, I get it. But Calhoun last year giving pep talks about UConn and UConn basketball got me ready to play. Like I was so ready to go, so amped up. I think that Danny Hurley is real. He's a Hurley basketball lineage, tough coach in an age where kids don't want to be coach tough. They're not being impacted by the transfer portal as much and all this other noise that's going on. So they're big. They defend well. They got great guard play. Well, I'm sending the trophy right now to Stores. UConn.
The Huskies, baby. I picked it right. Not that it was real hard, but I picked it right. You picked the #1 seed and you let it ride. Dennis Schiraldi, I am so grateful for you for so many reasons, but I'm so grateful today for you stopping by and educating us and giving us something to be excited about. Let's not do this like once a year. Let's talk.
Yeah.
You do so much with youth sports, with sports in general. You are just a wealth of knowledge, my friend. Thanks for everything.
I don't know. At least I'm a wealth of something, but no, I wholeheartedly you having me on to talk hoops. I'm extremely passionate about it. You know, I took in a lot of high school hoops this year as well, and so anytime that you ever want to stop on and have a hoops call or talk youth sports or whatever it is, my friend, I'm here for you.
I love it, ladies and gentlemen. Dennis Schiraldi. Schiraldi, thank you so much, brother. That's going to do it for this special side of the YSN Power Hour. It's a noon special. This way that we can all go and do what we're supposed to do. I know Dennis is dodging calls and stuff like that, I'm sure, today and tomorrow and for the next 6 weeks until this baby is over. In the one shining moment and the bright lights and Jim Nance, not Tony Romo, but Jim Nance comes down. I don't even think he works there for this season. He's retired. But it doesn't matter. You can't have one of these without Jim Nance. He's going to be like the Undertaker, coming out, like rising up and handing out the trophy to UConn. UConn, ladies and gentlemen, and do not break our thumbs or our kneecaps if we're wrong, because that is inevitably going to happen. Well, that's going to do it for our show today, right here on the YSN Power Hour. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow for a very special announcement on the YSN All-Star Game. Guest judge, the 5th one, going to be revealed.